Council meeting tonight, August 11th. We appreciate you in the audience attending, and those that would like to online is at washingtoncity.org/meetings. I've asked Councilman Bundy if he will offer our invocation, Councilman Coates if he will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Our Father in heaven, we bow before thee humbly this evening and express our gratitude for the many blessings that we enjoy in living in this free land of America. And we're grateful for the Constitution that guides and directs us, and for the direction we get as council. We pray for thy direction to be here this evening, that we may be mindful of those things that are important to make decisions on this evening. We're grateful for those in the community who have gone before us, and those who are here, and the great heritage that we enjoy here in Washington City. And we ask for these favors and blessings, and again, thank thee for all that we have and that we enjoy in this free land, and this beautiful area of the country where we live. And we say this in Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you.
Please rise and repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Councilman. Move on to item 1, approval of the agenda.
Mayor, I'll motion that we approve the agenda as outlined.
Thank you.
Second.
A motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Announcements? Anything to announce? Okay, we'll move on to item 3, declaration of abstentions and conflicts. Any to declare?
Just one on my part, Mayor, item 6A.
Okay.
Potential.
Thank you. So noted. Move on to item 4, consent agenda. Consideration to approve the board audit report for July 2021 and to approve the minutes from the city council meeting of 7/28/2021 and final plat for Brio Phase 4E located approximately Camino Oso to Brio Parkway. Approve the final plat for Red Vista condominiums Phase 1 located at 1100 East and Telegraph. Final plat amendment, consideration to approve the final plat amendment for Wilbur Acres, 4th amended located at 960 South, 1900 East. Purpose is to combine lot 6 and 7 into one lot. Applicant Russell Erdley and Travis Jones. And then 3 special events. Pineview High School Homecoming Parade, September 8th, 2021, 7 to 7:30, located at Telegraph Street. Our approved parade route. Wilson Electronics Company Picnic, September 9th, 2021, from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. located at Highland Park. And Pride of Southern Utah Family Night, September 11th, 2021, from 5 to 9 p.m. located at Pineview Park. Any questions or comments on the board audit report on the consent agenda?
Mayor, if I could, just backing up a little bit on potential conflicts of interest, those final plats, C1 and C2, I have some minor involvement on those. I have declared that in the past. So here we are with the consent agenda. So I guess looking back on it, I have expressed a potential conflict. So I just want to make that open in case anyone has any concern with that.
So noted. Thank you.
Mayor, if there's no discussion, I'll make a motion. We approve the consent agenda.
Bundy, second.
I do have a motion and a second. We'll go roll call vote.
Staley, aye.
Ward, aye.
Coates, aye.
Bundy, aye.
Thank you. Those are approved. Thank you, gentlemen. Item 5, proclamation, reading of a proclamation in an effort to increase awareness of the anniversary of the drafting of the Constitution of the United States of America by the Constitutional Convention. See if I can find that.
Mayor, there's a copy in that green folder right there.
Whichever you prefer.
Thank you. Whereas the Constitution of the United States of America, the guardian of our liberties, embodies the principles of limited government in a republic dedicated to rule by law. And whereas September 17th, 2021 marks the 234th anniversary of the framing of the Constitution of the United States of America by the Constitutional Convention. And whereas it is fitting and proper to accord official recognition to this magnificent document and its memorable anniversary, and to the patriotic celebrations which will commemorate it. And whereas Public Law 915 guarantees the issuing of a proclamation each year by the President of the United States of America, designating September 17th through September 23rd as Constitution Week. Now, therefore, I, Kenneth F. Nielsen, by virtue of the authority vested in me as mayor of Washington City, do hereby proclaim the week of September 17th through the 23rd as Constitutional Week. And as our citizen, and ask our citizens to reaffirm the ideals the framers of the Constitution had in 1787 by vigilantly protecting the freedoms guaranteed to us through this guardian of our liberties. A witness thereof, I have hereto sent my hand and caused the great seal of Washington City, Utah, to be affixed this 11th day of August of the year of our Lord, 2021. I think it's a great reminder for all of us that this is a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. And as your mayor, I'll continue to fight for that. And I appreciate the opportunity to serve. Okay, we'll move on. If I can get over there. There we go. Preliminary plat, item 6, continued consideration to approve a preliminary plat for the views at Coral Canyon Phase 6 located at approximately Black Canyon Avenue and Highland Parkway. Applicant Coal West Homes.
Thanks, Mayor. This is Eldon. I'll be reporting this. This was tabled during our last city council meeting, July 28th, to give the applicant time to revisit the proposed trail system. The applicant has done so and is here tonight to present that. He's given us 2 options for you to look at, and you can see those in your packet on the screen.
Yeah, Eldon, 3 options, right? The original and then 2 additional.
Correct. Yes.
I think option 2, if you're done with your report, I think option 2 certainly seems to fit how I recall the council and having this conversation with the developer, with the trail going around the perimeter, and it looks like. Do you know, Eldon, if they adjusted the lot sizes at all? Because it looks like they're able, if I see the purple correctly, it looks like that trail is able to stay high and kind of before those tighter contour lines that would indicate, a steeper gradient.
Yeah, I think they did nip those 2 corner lots to accommodate, bring that trail system in. Actually, no, they didn't. Drew just pulled that up. It was on an angle as it is. As far as I'm aware, all the lot sizes stayed the same.
Eldon, this is Thad. Are you aware between lots 100 and 101, that little sliver piece that originally was going to, be a tie into the trail, is that still going to happen?
It's up for discussion. The applicant really wanted to leave things open and accommodate city council.
Okay, so the council can consider whether that's something they want.
So speaking on that, I'm glad you brought that up. It looks like we have a connection, a couple like 800 feet down the road. I see that the space is there. I don't know, do we need it for any kind of maintenance access there? I would think not, with the trail already being the access where it's currently proposed.
Yeah, that's where it was gonna tie up originally. And I'm not sure on the maintenance side if they would need that. I would also think we wouldn't need to have that there with the access being right on the corner.
To give access to that neighborhood, to the trail, if you were gonna connect it in, but it'd be interesting to have the applicant respond to that.
Yeah, I think what I'm expressing is I think it has it to the neighborhood already with the one that's proposed. Is because it's only like 800 feet down the road, but I don't know if it's a benefit or not to have it at the end or not, but. And I'm assuming this is a 10-foot wide trail. It's just not, I didn't see a dimension. Oh, there it is. It's not on the plan view. It's on the, I missed that there.
Yeah, it looks like it's detailed at 10 feet.
Mayor, I have some questions for the applicant, if you're willing. I guess my question is, you presented the original option plus the additional two. Are you comfortable with any or all of any of these options?
We're comfortable with all three. We still recommend to go with our initial in terms of safety. But as the road will be dedicated to the city, we're comfortable with any of the three.
Barry, I assume you're online with us?
I am, and I agree with the council. Option 2 is the best for us. That's what we would rather have. And as far as that access in between those lots, it's certainly not going to hurt anything. I think that's, Coral Canyon has done that in many places, especially on the other side of the road up on the hill. They've had access for, those homes and those lots for people, not so close to the other access where they can go between there and get on the trail. So that wouldn't matter us to either, but number 2 is certainly to us the most desirable for the city.
Do you, as the applicant, want to have that access for this phase
Yeah, we intended to leave it there
and would tie it
for a connection.
into the trail?
Exactly.
Mayor, I'm prepared to make a motion unless there's further discussion.
Absolutely.
All right. A motion that we approve a preliminary plat for the views at Coral Canyon Phase 6, located at approximately Black Canyon Avenue and Highland Parkway, with the option 2 as presented.
Second.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second. Roll call vote.
Bundy, aye.
Goat's eye.
Ivy, aye. Ward, aye.
Staley, aye.
Thank you. That is approved. Item B, consideration to approve preliminary plat for Liberty Lane located approximately 3600 South, 240 West. Applicant Leanne Hoops.
Thanks, Mayor. The applicant is proposing 10 lots on an area of coverage of 5.05 acres. Zoning designation at this location is R112, and the surrounding zoning is RA1 to the north and east, with R115 to the south and west. The proposed subdivision conforms to the approved zoning, and the request meets the subdivision requirements and other city ordinances as it relates to this location. Staff has reviewed the request and recommends approval with conditions of the preliminary plat as outlined. The Planning Commission reviewed this request on July 21st, 2021, and unanimously recommended approval of the preliminary plat for Liberty Lane subdivision based on the following findings and subject to the following conditions. And we're happy to answer any questions at this time.
I have more of a generic one on the timeline of that road. I'm going to call it 1450 South because that's what it says, even though I know it's not 1450 in Washington. It's more of a curiosity because if we're approving this and the sewer and everything's not in place, is that a condition we need to put on until the sewer's in place? That the preliminary plat has to wait till that? So I guess I'm asking Mike Shaw if he's available. Yeah, maybe he's in the conference room. Probably got his music going or something, you know.
Mike, you on the line?
So it has to
Steve's
do with the
getting-
sewer and the storm drain. I know it was pretty shallow, so I know that's why they had to go to the west. But I'm just curious if we need to be putting a condition on this approval based on this future sewer coming in. Because it's
Is
not
the-
in now, right, Drew? None
Sorry,
of that
what's
sewer
that?
line, their storm drains in right now, right?
No, it's not.
I just don't want to say, give them preliminary plat if we don't have. So I was in a, no, I can't say that.
Yes.
I was going to say with Mike Chapa. Is he jumping on? So those are my concerns, but if there's any other.
So well, this is a question for Mike Shaw again. I assume that the engineering drawings are already submitted and approved. Do you know that, Drew?
No, because preliminary plat will give them the best,
Oh,
and
okay,
then
so
they'll turn in the
then it will.
construction drawings.
So maybe that's a condition that ought to be addressed, and it
It
probably
probably
will be
wouldn't
addressed.
hurt to put
It'll
it,
have to be.
put it on there, because we probably wouldn't want to give a final plat until they have it. Well, we wouldn't. Well, they could bond for it, but why would you bond for something that's not there to go to? Yeah, I'd rather have it as a condition saying you can't go a final plat until.
So that would be your recommendation, is not to do final plat until the sewer and the storm drain connections are connected.
That would be mine. We'll see if Mike, are you on yet? Another.
I am on.
There he goes.
All right, Mike. So I got a question for you. We're on item 6B on the Liberty Lane. So with the timeline of the roadway, the sewer and storm drain look to be going to the west and tying onto that, but that road currently isn't built and the sewer's not there as far as my knowledge.
Correct.
Do we need to be putting some kind of condition on this plat that we can't get final plat until the sewer and storm drains have been connected in 1450 South?
So the developer's well aware of that. A condition probably wouldn't hurt. They are actually having to pay a portion of that storm drain that's going to come down that new alignment.
Okay. So he's both. They both go down that road, storm drain and sewer.
Correct.
Okay. Well, if that, I'm ready to make a motion if there's not any other questions. I'll make a motion that we approve the preliminary plat for Liberty Lane located approximately 3600 South and 240 West with the findings and conditions provided by staff, with the additional condition number 13 that the sewer and stormwater connections must be in place before final plat can be recorded.
Bundy, second.
You have a motion and a second? Right, go ahead.
Can I
Drew.
just clarify, recorded or applied for? That, because
I mean, in my mind,
you can
it's not-
apply and get the final plat, but then we can sit and hold it. I'm just asking for clarity because,
Well, I would.
I'm okay with
I would
what you
assume
did.
That we're not bringing it toward council until those connections are made.
okay, then that's why you want to say before final
And
plat
I'm
can be
going to
applied for.
Amend mine to say before final plat's applied, but they have the right to apply. Just we're not going to see it before council until it's finished.
I'll second that amendment. And I would assume also that, when the plans come in for the subdivision, they're going to have that as part of the drawings. And so,
It'd be part of construction drawings,
so-
yes.
Okay, motion and a second. Roll call vote.
Staley, aye.
Ward, I.
Ivy, aye.
Coates, aye.
Bundy, aye.
Thank you. That's approved. Item C, consideration to approve a preliminary plat for Heritage Place located approximately 2000 South Washington Fields Road. Applicant Nyson Field LLC.
Thanks, Mayor. So this preliminary plat was previously approved by City Council back on April 10th, 2019. Due to no final plat being recorded within the approved time frame to do so, the application expired. And the applicant is here today with a mirror image of the previously approved preliminary plat and is ready to move forward with it at this time. The applicant is requesting approval for 179 lots on an area coverage of 44.352 acres. The zoning designation at this location is planned unit development residential. And there's a corner piece, it's planned unit development PUD commercial, which really we're not concerned with tonight, just the residential side. The surrounding zoning is R110 to the north, RA half, and R112 to the east, R110 and R18 to the west, and agricultural 20, and R112 to the south. The proposed subdivision conforms to the approved zoning and meets the subdivision requirements and other city ordinances as it relates to this location. Staff has reviewed the request and recommends approval with conditions of the preliminary plat as outlined. The Planning Commission reviewed this request on July 21st, 2021, and recommended approval with a vote of 4-1 of the preliminary plat for Heritage Place subdivision based on the following findings and subject to the following conditions. And we're happy to answer any questions at this time.
Eldon, do you know what caused the delay that resulted in this expiring?
I was told it was COVID related, just kind of being down and out for a little bit.
Councilman Ivey, at the Planning Commission, the applicant indicated that they didn't feel like there was delay, that they moved dirt and did a lot of things, and they just didn't get the final plat in. And so I would say the applicant wasn't in agreement that there was delay, at least as the comments at the Planning Commission.
And this consideration is the exact same plat that was approved back in 2019. No changes.
It's the same exhibits exactly.
If I could, this application for this, extending this preliminary plat is kind of brought to my mind the fact that we have, as stated in the ordinance, that in a year they're supposed to have the final plat, or the community development director can extend that for 6 months. The concern I have, not necessarily with this one, but in general, that we, they've been out there working, as everyone knows, for 6-8 months, spent millions of dollars literally. And here we are looking at a preliminary plat after the fact. I would suggest that our ordinance in that regard be changed to consider where someone is with construction and not literally specific time frame. If they're out there spending millions of dollars, we shouldn't, Public Works has issued a permit for grading. They've approved the engineering drawings. And now here we are looking at a preliminary plat. We're compelled to approve this plat. And so I just, rather than get us into a situation where we're way behind, like this one, where it's already outdated somewhat, I would suggest that section of the code be looked at.
Can we put that on a work session? I would agree on one of these items to just look at the wording on that.
Well, I'd like to, because we need discussion on both sides. I'll just, because,
Yeah,
and I'm
agreed.
fine with re-looking at, we probably do and
Let's just
but
look at
we
it.
offer them to come in, but if you fail not to at least ask for something, that's,
Well, and
I'm just saying, so that's part of
you're
the
right,
work
it is on
discussion
both
we need.
sides. And I mean, to me, if we're not going to maybe change that, then we need to not approve a grading permit, engineering drawings, and give them the okay to go to work, and so
Yeah.
it's just, we're missing a step there. It's not,
Yeah.
not
No, I
dealing with-
think it'd be very great. We got together and worked that out a little bit more and, broadened it out, but, still, yeah, staff's fine with that.
So is there any other discussion?
So, yeah, I do. Is the applicant here?
I'm on Zoom if you guys can hear me.
Yeah. Hey,
This
this
is Bob
Councilman
Hermanson.
Bailey. Who am I on with?
Bob.
Yeah, I'm sorry. This is Bob Hermanson. It's a little bit glitchy on my end here, but yeah, Bob Hermanson's here.
Great. Hey, thanks, Bob. Thanks for taking the time to be here. This is a good project. I just wanted some clarification on a few things. Along that little knuckle next to the detention basins, it talks about a little trail, kind of a dirt trail. Can you kind of explain a little more about the trail and kind of where exactly that trail goes? And
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So that was just in connection with the existing, right where I believe that's I'm not sure who's running the pen there, but whoever's circling now, that is correct. And so the connection was just to have, or the thought is just to have a connection at the toe of the hill for the existing space that's there. And this was in the original pre-plat conversations that we did, prior to this, and then also in conjunction with the other, on the left side of that red circle there's a triangular portion there that was also not actually part of this project, but it was another phase that we did over there. And it was just to provide a connection to the local residents that were already using that area through there. And then also kind of linking that together with the park. And then also, this helps. That helps right there. Actually, the one to the map to the bottom there. Yeah, that's right. Just providing connection. It was just from the community standpoint, that was just in the negotiations that we talked through and the overall approval. And Drew's illustrated this correctly, is that, we're not here to make any changes or anything. We're not asking for anything. It just to continue under the construction that we have going now.
So this was approved. All these items were approved on the PCD level. PUD on this one. Thank you. Yeah, and I recognize, Councilman, we're at a platting level here, but I wasn't here in April of 2019. So there's a little trailhead there at Old Stone Cove, and I'm assuming that red line on the PUD follows that 20-foot drainage easement, and then pops out onto Karma Street. And then if you walk along Karma Street, you can get to that cul-de-sac at Janus Court. And it looks like there's a really neat kind of natural surface trail that you can meander and then get up to the top of Nyson Hill. Is that right?
Yep, that's exactly right. And the intent was just to give everybody in the community the ability to get up there. And then that was the pathway that it just made sense to interact there on that knuckle that you were referring to in the parking stalls in the park, and then along the road, and then just up through the cul-de-sac and then up there. And I don't know, there's a lot of people have been up there. Maybe some of you have been up there, but it's fantastic right there. It's a really neat spot. And so that was the intent, is to just open that up for everybody and give some definition to how to get up there.
Yeah, all the deer are going to have to find a new home if it gets used too much. Drew, can you scroll that down just a little bit? It looks other way, or up, I guess. So there's an existing detention basin there on the corner. It looks like in order to meet this, you're expanding that detention basin, and it shows green. I'm assuming that you're going to grass and make this nice rather than just kind of rocks and the weeds that follow.
Now, wait a minute. Be careful talking about grass. That takes water.
Well, it is green. I'm just saying.
Right. Yeah, that's just delineating that it will be landscaped. That was our intent around there, that it was a negative into a positive, that it wasn't just a detention pond itself, but it did have the landscape feel to it, and that it was a feature, an amenity type feature for the park, that you could be able to sit at least on that one south side, to be able to go outside, park, and then have some shade to sit there. And that's kind of been a focal point for that area for eternity, right? Like those trees that are there and the ones to the south have always been there. And that was kind of Yep, that's exactly right. And so
Bob,
that was the intent of that whole area.
I appreciate that. And I know you're going to do a great job with this. I'd just like to hear just some reassurances of what that little area is going to be. You've detailed your other amenities really, really well. I just want to hear a little more, what those amenities would be, even though it's a detention basin. Are you committing to some grass with some other forms of landscapes and little sitting areas, or more than just a rock detention basin?
Yeah, and I want to, again, I'm not sure, Drew, if that's you running that or not, but that is true. And I was trying to illustrate is that the intent is to landscape ground cover with rock, the detention area, and then outside of that, yes, have some sitting areas around that near the parking stalls that are shown there on the map. Just on that, it'll be on the south side of that area, and then also leave the trees that are there, not all of them, but the trees that are there to provide shade for a sitting area at the trailhead location. So the intent overall is that entire space is going to be landscaped. If that's what you're asking me, is that it is not meant to be a detention basin and left alone just as a detention structure. That entire area will be landscaped. If that answers your question.
And I like that because there's patio homes there. It's a bit of a trailhead. There's some parking stalls. Did I hear that there will be some grass there or no grass?
Yeah. The intent is it was going to be very minimal, but there will be some just to the north on that map there of the parking stalls right at where the red line starts for the trail, just to the north, which would be the south area, that detention area, there would be some right there along with that. The intent is that those trees would provide shade so you could actually get out there and actually have some space there where a little bit cooler temperature and stuff with the shade and the grass.
Most of those homes along there, lots 71 through 74, whatever they are, most of them have block walls. Would you block any other walls that don't currently have block wall there? It seems like.
If you wouldn't mind, which lots, Drew, if you're running the screen.
I drove by there today, and it's probably the third one in, doesn't have a block wall behind it. The one more down.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
But the other four do. I just didn't know if you'd work with the property owner, or if you would intend to work with the property owner there, just for a little bit of privacy on their lot.
Yeah. So originally, and it's been quite some time ago now, we had visited with everybody on that, all of those folks, all four of those folks, but it's been quite some time ago. But we had talked about that, and then there had been some discussion on that. And the thought is that when we were getting ready to actually produce that for sure, we were going to follow up with actually all four of those and understand what their intent is at the time. That was really what it came down to, is that at the time we had gone through it, we had all agreed that that's what it was going to be. And they liked the idea of being buffered by the park area and not by the development. But then it was just a matter of like, hey, let's get together when we're going to build it, and we'll decide, what they were going to contribute, and we were going to kind of work through that with them of how that was going to end up looking on their actual property line.
Okay. That's all questions I have about that, but I do have some questions about another thing. And if the council has other thoughts, I'm happy to let you jump in, but I do have some other questions on this one.
Let me just ask one quick that I think relates with what you're just talking about. Bob, Councilman Ivy here. The park and the pool triggers at or before 1/3 of the build out. Is that still correct?
That is correct. It's just right off of the approved documents before. We're like I say, we're not asking for any changes whatsoever. We just want to stay the course on the plan. Like I say, we're under construction. I think it was Councilman Bundy was talking about that, is that we're just trying to stay the course on what we agreed to.
Okay, Councilman Staley here again. I have some connectivity is something that I typically bring up. And so I just have some connectivity questions in regards to Washington Fields Road and kind of maybe the northeast corner of your project. Drew, is it possible you could pull back up the exhibit that they had submitted? Or that one's probably just as good. Actually, the other one would be better because it shows some easements. Yeah, that would be good. If you could kind of zoom in on that northeast corner, just kind of above the development there. If you could, other way.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, your other left.
As far as I can go.
Okay, so to the north of this project is Heritage Cove, and if you look right there between lots 16 and 17 on Heritage Cove, there's a 20-foot ingress egress public utility and drainage easement. It's currently encroached upon by an existing home and a home that's under construction. That is one of the accesses to the green home on the north side, and then I guess the booze, if I'm saying that right, on the south side. And then there's 3 lots for duplexes in between those. And then on Washington Fields Road, there's another 20-foot easement that that gives ingress egress to these, that gives access to these. It's right kind of behind above lots or those units 103 through 106. Yeah, right there. I appreciate you can read my mind. The concern that I have with the two existing properties there and the you know, and the three duplexes that are potentially coming there is that they don't have that, you know, their north access is encroached upon, and their existing access that they're using is dangerous and will probably only get more dangerous as you try to, you know, decelerate and turn onto a best 20-foot easement to get into there. So my question, I'm kind of saying that just to one, ask if there's any way possible, and I don't want to hold you up in your development. No, it's not my intent by any means, but what I'm looking at is maybe what's best for the entire community in that entire area over the long run is there a possibility that you could tie in, you know, a 20-foot easement, maybe an alley or something off Lizzie Lane, if you were able to pick up that other 20-foot easement that would maybe access and give an alley along the east side of Nyson Hill that would connect another Sullivan Project Heritage Cove to Heritage Place, but then give access to these other properties. I know that's a lot to put on your plate. Again, it's not my intent to hold you up at this point, but I think that for the sake of those property owners and the future property owners' access, I think it would be better to try to address this a little bit now, even if we just agree to have that conversation, or that you have that conversation with staff.
Yeah, I think that well, what I would propose is that first and foremost, just leaving the pre-plat how it is as far as this approval goes. But the second part is I'm happy to come in with staff and try to, you know, see if we could potentially come up with an idea together, you know, basically between 103 and the hill to potentially, you know, maybe like you're saying, maybe there's a way to reorient that one fourplex, right, to maybe fish a road in between the toe of that hill and Livy Lane as a discussion. And then, and if it met all the requirements, obviously, of the city and staff, that right in there where that cloud's out there, that we'd be happy to look at it, you know what I mean, and take a look. That way we would still have our pre-plat intact and we could continue it. But then I'm happy to look at that and sit down with the group and see if we can fish that in there. And then maybe even because the density doesn't appear to me to probably change, if we could fish that in there and everybody thought that was a better idea, then maybe the owners would be willing to do that and work it out with the city. That may not, I'd be fine to work through that with the group.
I actually really appreciate that. And I think it makes a lot of sense to vacate that, what I see would be a dangerous easement, you know, little alleyway, 20-foot alleyway. I really appreciate that. And maybe we just ask our recorder to, you know, put that in the minutes and trust that you could work with staff on that. And I'm confident staff will work with the property owners to the north to make sure that they have, you know, that other access. That's all I have.
Question for staff, if I can jump in on that. So I just want to make sure that in the 2019 approval that there were no conditions attached to that, because they wouldn't necessarily come forward with this
On this particular issue?
right.
No, it wasn't.
No, not this particular issue, the whole approval. Because
It's the same conditions of the original. Yeah.
No, but there weren't, but what I'm asking is, were there any that were attached by council?
No, they would be on the back end of it.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Any additional questions?
Mayor, if you're ready, I'll make a motion that this council approves a preliminary plat for Heritage Place located at approximately 2000 South Washington Fields Road. And the minutes note the discussion that was had by council tonight, and that the applicant recognized those.
Mayor,
Bundy,
I'll
second.
I'll second that, Mayor.
I have a motion and a second. Roll call vote.
Staley, aye.
Ward, aye.
Ivy, aye.
Goat's eye.
Bundy, aye.
All right, before we move on, Leanne, We already approved your plat amendment, so thanks for coming. Okay. Item 7, public hearing. Public hearing to consider city code amendments to Title 9 zoning regulations, Chapter 2, administration and enforcement, Section 7, changes and amendments, also Title 10 subdivision regulations, Chapter 1, general provisions, Section 2, definitions, and Chapter 3, plats, Section 3, preliminary plat, subsection D, form and contents. Community Development Director Drew Ellerman.
Thank you, Mayor. This will be kind of what I'm going to refer to as house cleaning at best is what it, comes down to. State code has changed a little bit, so we thought we'd take this opportunity and change our code in a few, especially in the first part here in section 927. As you can see, I did get the red in this time, right? It did show up in your tablets. Okay,
Yeah.
good. Even played with the strike button, had a little fun. But this is what we want. You can see the code red, take the red out and the strikes off. That's what it currently says. And it used to be a 14-day period that you had to do this with it's actually changed to 10 and has been for a while. We just wanted to finally do it. And we thought instead of knowing our state legislators as well as we love them, they change things quite often. So we've been, a lot of cities have been doing this. They just now state as per Utah, state code annotated. Then we don't have to come in and make all the amendments every time they change something on a date, or a time limit. We just say whatever the state says. And so it's kind of what we're doing here is just adding. So, but I did want to add the words official zoning map. Currently it just says including the map. So I just want to be clear, which map. And so it's the official zoning map. That's the title we give it. Also, just to add proper notice as per code annotated. And then I popped in the word following a public hearing. So that's what's changed in 927A. Then as you drop down to C, I'm adding letter number 4. There's just 3 currently. And basically letter 4 is, or number 4 is what D said minus a little bit. So I just thought it'd be better at the way it worded out, it'd be better in C. So I'm just adding, it shall be the responsibility of the applicant for such action to provide 2 sets of address labels necessary to provide the public hearing notices, as well as a list showing the names and addresses of all property owners be notified pursuant to subsection C of this section. All costs incurred by the city in processing a zone change or amendment shall be the responsibility of the person requesting such zone change or amendment. So that's what D said, except minus the signs, because now we're not required to post signs on
So there's no
property.
changes there. It's just
Well,
clarification.
Yeah, I'm moving. If you read D, it's almost this verbatim, except there is a sentence in there that talks about a sign shall be posted by staff. State does not require that anymore. So that
Oh,
if you go to D, almost all of this is D minus the posting of the sign. And I just, and when you read out numbers 1, 2, and 3, that's why it just felt better to throw a 4 because it's all in the same kind of.
Well, so that was one of my other questions. So the sign doesn't have to be put out there by staff. Does the
There's no
applicant-
sign.
The applicant doesn't have to put a sign.
No,
out either.
they don't do the sign anymore because of all the other laws where you have to put, with the internet and everything, people availability to get information. That's why I think the state took the sign part off. And so that's the change we're doing in section or chapter 2 of Title 9. That's just dropping the sign posting and then changing to just follow what state code is.
So Drew, where would the applicant find the 2 sets of address labels? How do they access those?
Well, if I didn't put it on there because we're not changing it, but if you read, I think in number 2 or 3, it says the city only accepts 2 places. It either comes directly from the county recorder's office, which they do gladly. They have a few councilmen who use them probably often, and because they're the keepers of who owns the record. And the only other thing we'll accept is a professional licensed certified title company within the state of Utah. We'll accept the names they give us because guess where they get them from?
The county.
Yeah, Washington County assessors.
So what is the parameters for those for those people that need to be notified, just help us to be reminded of that.
I know.
Okay, the state law is, I want to start there, is everybody within 300 feet of the property in question. Okay. Our city council here in the city felt like, and I'm going to tell you why this came about. We noticed once up north, there were 3 property owners within 300 feet. And two of those 3 were the same person. So we sent out 2 notices. So there were a few people that live farther south were a bit ticked off about that. So they got a hold of a couple of council members and told them, hey, I think you guys need to look at this. So we did. And now what Washington City does is we still go 300 feet with a minimum of 30 non-duplicated notices, okay, of property owners. Now, if you go out to 300 feet and you don't have 30, your bubble goes out to 350, 400, whatever it takes to get a minimum of 30 notices, non-duplicates. So every zone change general plan amendment will have at least a minimum of 30 notices go out to 30 different property owners. That's what the city does above and beyond the state.
And I like that. So to your knowledge, then, is there any way to determine the owner of the property? Because there may be a renter, there may be.
State law is the owner of the property, even if they live in Timbuktu
It goes to
and
the
they're
owner,
renting it, it
not to
goes
the
to the
address.
owner, not to the renter, because they're not the ones with the
Where the
investment in
tax
the
notice
property.
is sent is where it goes.
Yeah.
Just a couple of things with respect to who provides those. I just dealt with this over in St. George, and the title company in that case said, we're not going to give any certification or assurance of that. So, and then
All
as
the
far as
ones we get come from the county.
Anyone can go on there and do it. They have a software on there where you can click the point and it'll automatically do a radius and give you all those.
Yep.
But the county's not really going to want to do that either. They're not going to certify anything. That's for sure.
No, but if I know it's coming from their records, that's the most current records of anybody down here that we know of, because and they're still going to be a miss every once in a while, because transitions of sales sometimes take a lack of, so we're not saying it's foolproof, but it's about as close as you can get.
Yeah, I'm just thinking as far as anybody certifying anything, they're going to be reluctant to do that.
Yeah.
You know.
We don't get many from title companies. And when they do, I think they charge the people an extra arm and an extra leg to do.
Well,
to do.
and
That's why most of them come.
Particular case I'm dealing with, they said, we don't do that.
Well, I like, because
So-
the county will actually print up the label the way we know it comes from the county, because the way the label things come in. That's one thing I do appreciate, that when you do go to them, they will print them out, and then it's lined up with our copiers, and they print off really slick, and we just peel them off and put them on. So we know when they come that way, and if they don't, then we kind of question.
So this doesn't indicate anything as far as that list being certified in any way. It just says there's a list to be provided, correct? So,
Yeah,
so
and
that's just a staff policy guideline, if you will.
well, it's actually in that it has to come from one of those two either a title company or from the
It
county.
is in here.
It's in our code. Yeah.
And I
Not
don't-
in this change.
Not in this, not
'cause
in
We're
here.
not changing it. It's already in.
The only certification would be to have like a title opinion for all 30 at the same time that the labels are printed. And I'm not sure that you want to go that far. So the best record that doesn't include a fee for the opinion is your county recorder's record. But yeah, the certification would be title opinion. And I don't think we want to go that far.
Is everybody good on Title 9? Okay, Title 10, we're just
I
doing.
actually have one question for the council. So I understand that the state no longer requires a physical sign at the property, but I'm just curious to the rest of the council's take on that. If they think that's antiquated notice, or if they think that's a benefit, I'd be happy to hear from the mayor and council on that. I'm just kind
I've
of thinking
seen
that through in
one.
my head right now.
I've only think I've ever seen one. And I looked at it and I thought, oh, that's where that is. I mean, it's literally an 8x10 sheet. They're hard to find. I don't know that it's.
Yeah, you'd have better luck to go online and look at what the location is. And, as Drew mentioned, electronically, you can find where those are. But nobody's going to go out there and track them down.
Yeah, if it's going to be
typically.
useful, you'd almost have to require it to be larger.
Yeah.
So Drew, is there any contact by city staff to those folks within that 300-foot parameter. We just
Well, they get a
relying
letter.
on
They get, that's
but
what
no
this is
phone
for.
call or anything like that.
No, we couldn't. I mean, if that's what you wanted to do, but yeah, I'd probably recommend not doing that. The letter goes out and they call in. Kathy fields calls, from those 30 that end up going out. I bet you 30 to 50% of them at least every time call and just ask, hey, what's kind of going on?
Yeah.
And then we explain it and they go, oh, okay. We tell them, well, come to the meeting though, if you, so we put it out there, but we do get a lot of phone calls from people to get the letter, just asking to make sure they understand.
Which is a great service to explain that to them. But as a council, I mean, we kind of need to understand that you are relying on the citizens to kind of tell the rest of the neighborhood. Because there'll be some that miss it and then they'll.
Well, and they go well
we
beyond.
always have those that come in and say,
they
"Oh,
go
I
well
didn't get a
beyond the
notice."
300 feet.
Yeah.
And phone numbers are a contact information that the county doesn't maintain as a public record. So those would be less certain than the record kept by the county for addresses.
And there's no doubt that there are situations where, yes, the developer brings forward the 30 names and addresses and sends it out to the property owners in the proximity, but there's no doubt that sometimes they miss individuals, and that's a problem. And I understand that the state no longer requires a physical sign posting, and I also question the effectiveness of it, but I may have seen one or two. But I just, is it difficult? Is it cumbersome? I mean, is it to put a sign up, and maybe it's not even necessary. I'm really not trying to.
Do you want my real answer, Councilman, or the
before
one you
before I
want
hear
to
your answer,
hear?
I'll just make my point that I would just err on the side of over noticing rather than under noticing. So I'm just wondering about pulling away a sign notification.
Yeah, but that's where I appreciate that what this council did of going that 30 minimum. That's a lot of notices. And, if you see in your meetings, it's odd occasion that you're going to even end up with 30 different residents coming in. And it ends up being beyond that, just because people, hey, did you hear? Or, and it ends up going sometimes 600, 750 feet, that a lot of people in there, now do we hit everybody? No. Can you hit everybody? Well, you can try, but I don't know if you still could, it's always the one person that, well, how come I got left out?
Well, I appreciate the concern. I mean, it's always noticing and communicating with the public is always a problem. Where this is a modification from the state level, it's kind of handed to us, and we're trying to keep those in sync. I think my suggestion would be that we try it out and see if people, come back to us and say, I really missed the signs, or find out that we really need to do it in a different way.
So,
that would be my suggestion.
At the staff level, we acknowledge that this is not a perfect notice.
Right.
And part of the reason why is just the realities, my grandparents own their house with a trust, and the trust has an address that doesn't mail to their mailbox. And so it sits in a PO box before they get it, before the hearing, right? Property's owned by an LLC with the registered agent in Salt Lake City. So it mails, so the county says mail it to Salt Lake City. Like, there's a lot of practical reasons why people don't get notice. A real common one is they're a tenant, or they're living in the uncle's property. And so they're the ones that care and want to be heard, want to have a chance to come to the hearing, and the mailing ends up at some address somewhere else. And so it's not perfect, but it's as good as we can figure out how to help people know that there's an application for property change or property use change in that vicinity.
Well, it's a balance too, right? Because you're forcing somebody to pay for that. So
Correct.
You don't want to.
And there's plenty where you have more than 30 notices. If you're in a neighborhood where there's, a lot of units, I mean, the radius can include more than 30.
I think that the goal, of course, is to notify all the owners so that they can have their say, but not to belabor the idea of phones, but school districts and a lot of organizations use phone auto-generated messages that are automated, that the phone number should be available on that same list where they're getting the address, or it's maybe not, but
those are by consent of the users.
Consent,
within that.
okay.
Yeah.
I guess I'm kind of feeling the same thing, is that it seems like if the city doesn't do their very best to notify citizens and they came back that they didn't know, then that could be cumbersome to the city also. So it would be my hope that the signs, I mean, I know that they were limited in their maybe their exposure in some ways. But even if I saw a stake in the ground and the paper blown off, I knew something was going on there. But I just would like to always maintain that we do everything we can to notify the property owners. And I think that's best practices for not only the city, but for, but for the builders as well.
Councilman Ivy, you maybe should take that idea of a phone list from the city and put it into a work meeting, because that may be useful to the city to notify residents on other things, to start soliciting a list of consent from as many residents that want. Anyway, keep that idea, and it might be something worth talking about.
Or email addresses. Sometimes, we can generate those if it pops in, and just collect, but I don't know, there's different ideas.
Council, would a email address also be consent required?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you for that discussion. Any additional? Keep
Not
going.
on that. Now I'm going into
Move on.
part 2 of 2. So
Part 2.
this pretty simple. This is where the house clean really comes in. We went back and we're changing the definition here in minor subdivision, letter C of that definition. It used to be 20 feet and it's been 26 for a long time on the flag lots. So we just want to get that fixed and in the code to read that. So we're just striking the 20 and putting in the 26. And then also these are, I apologize for when I rewrote the subdivision ordinance about 1.5 years ago, I accidentally left out, and I can't believe that, especially V, that I left out that used to be in our subdivision ordinance. So I'll just quickly read. These are at the end of what's required on a preliminary plat. V, each subdivision shall have 2 accesses unless a single proposed access is less than 600 feet in length, measured from the center of an existing cross street to the center of the proposed cul-de-sac. Then W, show a minimum of 15-foot landscape strip along the boundary of a subdivision where the proposed plan shows double frontage lots. The landscape strip shall be designed to have a minimum of 10% live growth in the form of trees, shrubs, and ground cover. That used to be in the subdivision ordinance as well and got left out, but people have always been good about it. When I tell them that that's what our subdivisions require. So you drive through the fields and you have all those nice strips, most of me, but I've just felt like someone's going to say, well, it's not in your code, and I just wanted to say, well, I'm going to get it there while I'm doing this change, because it does make a better looking subdivision. We can all attest to that, I think. So there's the changes that you see in Title 9 and Title 10. And I know it's a public hearing, Mayor, but I'll be glad to answer any questions before you go into that, if you have any.
Just a thought on my part is a minimum of 10% live growth. There again, water. What is the definition of a landscape strip? Does it include grass? Does it include shrubs? Is it rock mulch? Okay. I mean, I'm just thinking, I hope that we're not very far from adopting ordinances that limit the amount of water and grass or grass and landscaping in the form of green.
Well, that's why I didn't choose 20% and I went with 10, I guess. I was trying to help but
you're saying a minimum of 10 so they can go more. And I don't think we want to do that. I think we're going to change that in the near future. I hope, right?
But it's, a tree is a big difference from grass. If you put grass out there, that could be a real water detriment. You put a tree out there, it's cooling the neighborhood. It's taking very little grass, really adds to the overall feel of the neighborhood. So I think we need to be, I like the way it's written because I think it helps people to kind of go that way.
And I like those areas where we have that groundwater that's only 2 or 3 feet deep. These trees love it down there, and it helps again with the shade. You talk to any HVAC guy and they'll tell you, you want to keep your bill down and not have your system work so hard, plant 2 or 3 trees in your yard because it'll drop your temperature of your house 10 to 15 degrees just, as soon as that shade hits. So, but again, I guess it depends on location, right, Councilman, that some areas the trees will be fine and we have the water sitting down there. It's not the greatest water, but a tree doesn't care, what it's drinking up most of the time. So
Cactus considered live growth?
I would.
Plant guy is going to step in here. Yes.
Okay.
That's right.
Plant.
Drought tolerant plants, I think is the terms that we use to.
Yeah.
Technically, lichen on the rock is also alive.
No, but no, we do accept a lot of boulder, I like the boulders, the crushed, rock is fine. I like, the way a lot of these landscape companies are actually doing a really good job in those strips. They're making variety of it, but yet it's not overkill.
Well,
So,
and you
on
can
the
you
plant.
can get an idea on some really good desert plants at the boilers. You walk
Oh,
down there and you
absolutely.
see that natural desert garden. You can say, okay, here are some native type plants that do well on minimal water. Okay.
So just to report some of the interactions staff has had, most of our plant strips along the roads are nicely landscaped with rock and stone and then plants. We've had several interactions with some of the planting strips inside the neighborhoods where they're trying to get the public will within their community to remove the grass from the planting strips. And so there's kind of the citizens are working through that challenge. And when you're in an HOA and you've that's been your look and feel, it's not an easy decision, but that's most of the interaction we get is people asking, will the city allow us to take the grass out of a planter strip? And Drew's office is really good to say, yeah, I mean, we support that, but we don't just want, concrete or, road base. We'd like you to replace it with something that's still beautiful and benefits the community.
Just remember that groundwater that we get helps recharge our water system too. So there's benefits to that as well.
Thank you. Any additional comments or questions? Are you done, Drew?
Sorry, I guess I should let you know your planning commission reviewed this and they unanimously recommended approval of these changes. I guess we do want to get that in there and because they spent time on their public hearing. So they were fine with all the changes and recommended that unanimously to you gentlemen.
Okay, thank you. If there are no additional questions from council or comments from Drew, well, this is a public hearing. Any of you out there that have an interest in this amendment? I don't see any, so I'll entertain the motion to close this public hearing.
So
Oh, wait a
moved.
minute, hold on. Tara, was there any emailed or written?
We did not receive any public comments on this item.
Thank you. Okay.
I'll make a motion. We close the public hearing for item 7A.
Bundy second.
Motion is second.
Bundy, aye.
Coates, aye.
Ivy, aye.
Ward, aye.
Staley, aye.
Thank you, gentlemen. Item 8, consideration to approve an ordinance for city code amendments to Title 9 zoning regulations, Chapter 2, administration and enforcement, Section 7, changes and amendments. Community Development Director Drew Ellerman.
I think we just went through that. So unless you
I move that we approve item 8A, the ordinance amending Title 9 zoning regulations, Chapter 2, administration and enforcement, Section 7.
Second by Coates.
I have a motion and a second. We'll do roll call vote.
Staley, aye.
Ward, aye.
Ivy, aye.
Coates, aye.
Bundy, aye.
Thank you. That's approved. Item B, consideration to approve Title 10 subdivision regulations, Chapter 1, general provisions, Section 2, definitions, and Chapter 3, plats, Section 3, preliminary plat, subsection D, form and contents. Community Development Director Drew.
You know what? I'll make that motion, Mayor, if you're ready for that. Motion to approve Title 10 subdivision regulations as outlined.
Bundy, second.
Motion and a second. Roll call vote.
Bundy, aye.
Coates, aye.
Ivy, aye.
Ward, aye.
Staley, aye.
Thank you. Item C, consideration to approve an ordinance for zone change request Z-21-16 from A20 agricultural minimum 20 acres to PDR, planned unit development residential and open space located approximately 4300 South Washington Fields Road, applicant MST 150 LLC.
Thank you, Mayor. The 2-week holdover is now complete. The item's ready for a city council action. And just to remind you, the planning commission by a vote of 4-1 recommended denial of Z-21-16 for the zone change request from A20 to PUDR. The reason for the vote of denial was based on access with the driveways onto the roadway, Weatherby Way. And so that's what the planning commission, just to remind you of that. So
Drew, did the applicant make any modifications, or are they just submitting what they had submitted to us 2 weeks ago?
Pretty sure this is the same
Yeah,
thing that was
okay,
submitted.
I
to
was
you.
wondering, this looks the same. I just didn't know if there was anything, I kind of half expected some changes, but
Drew, could you just give some insight and your perspective and expertise on this as well?
Well, this was brought to me. I guess my biggest concern about this is knowing where Weatherby Way comes from. It's the St. George, the most southern access between our two cities. So yeah, originally it was an 80, I think 5-foot road, but it's been downscaled to the 60. But my concern has just been it's a curved road. You got a lot of St. George traffic that's going to be coming down Weatherby Way. I mean, if it wasn't that, and it was more in between just regular standard residential roads, I keep saying it's my gut feeling about what gives me the discomfort, just because of that street and knowing what it's going to be, and the bend and the curvature on the road. I just haven't felt good about, it's just all my years of doing this job and seeing things, over time, what happens. I just had a gut, not a good feeling in my gut. I mean, for what it's worth, but I'm just basing on what that road's going to be. People will be using that road from St. George
That's where it's worth a
to
lot.
come over to Highway 7 to get to all those places.
Well,
and
and
that's just my concern.
Yeah, it's kind of my recommendation that we kind of look at some of these roads anyways and decide that, some of these, some of them are just too heavy to be having residential traffic backing onto them. So I realize we don't have the ordinance in place for that, but we're not really dealing with an ordinance situation with this because this is a PUD. Correct?
PUD design.
if there's no further discussion on this, I'll motion that we deny.
Councilman Saley, can I interrupt real quickly?
Sure.
Under the city's PUD code, if the council had already passed the PUD zone and then you denied an application within the PUD, you would be required to give them a written letter of your reasoning as to why you would deny it. We're not at that stage here. This is like your typical legislative discretion, which is you get to make decisions in light of the health, safety, and welfare of the public and the users of the public spaces within the city. Councilman Staley, if you'll just include in your motion the stated reasons for denial.
So help me understand that. Or you're saying though that at this point we don't have to send a letter.
Correct.
Oh, okay.
Because this is the request for PUD zoning and the PUD concept. If you had approved that and then they'd brought phase A and you denied it, we would have to send them a written letter with the reasons why. At this point, I just, so that the record's clear, just include it in your motion.
Sure. And I'd be happy for any suggestions I have along the way, but I'll take a stab at the two main reasons that are on my mind and see how the council responds. A motion that we deny an ordinance for zone change request Z-21-16 from A20 agricultural minimum 20 acres to PDR planned unit development and open space at approximately 4300 South Washington Fields Road. And the reasons primarily health, safety, and welfare of the community, but more specifically, the excessive number of units that would access their properties onto Weatherby Parkway. That and also the lack of interconnectivity between the adjacent roads within the project.
I can second that, Mayor.
All right, I do have a motion and a second. We will go with the roll call vote.
Staley, aye.
Ward, aye.
Ivy, aye.
Coates, aye.
Bundy, aye.
Mayor, may I make just a comment about this item before we move on? Is that okay?
Sure.
Just want to make mention that staff asked for an alternative design to help alleviate this potential problem, but the applicant wished to proceed with the design. And I guess it would just be important to say that the rest of the project was supported by staff.
All right,
I
thank
also
you.
want to make mention that the planning commission denied it, and I want our planning commission to work through a lot of these issues before it comes to us. I mean, sometimes it does happen, but I felt like with one shot it was denied and was just forced through. And I would hope that the applicant would work with the planning commission in the future to
This was a good catch by our planning commission, and I'm grateful for the work they did with it. And
But
think
I
we'll
want
be seeing
them
it
to
again.
know
I
that
agree.
we are listening to their
Yeah.
recommendations and we appreciate their input and their time and effort they put into these. So
Yeah, well said. Thank you.
Could I just ask a question? Drew, you mentioned that this was an 85-foot wide road through Washington City and then it was downsized to a 60. Is that correct?
Yeah, when I first came on 15 years ago, that we've always had a master plan road heading through this particular, the Hancock Gibby property. We referred to it all the time, and now they've sold it, but this is that same. And at one point, because actually the high school was supposed to be going out right in this area.
they
And
changed
that-
4200 south to a little wider when the high school.
Yeah, and
moved.
they upgraded that because when the high school moved up there, then that one went up and this one went down.
I just know that to 2450 South, St. George, that street that's tying in has been a major arterial road for as long as I can remember, 40 years. So I'm surprised that we would have changed that. And this is where we need to be looking at road master plans and make sure that they connect to adjoining entities. So anyway, just wanted to clarify that.
I'd like to just jump in and clarify it a little bit. St. George City did downsize their road tying into this. It was kind of a joint thing with Washington and St. George. Theirs was, believe it was their 90-foot road coming in. They downsized to a 66, tying into the road that goes up to the school. And we actually ran this on our model and showed that a 60 in Washington City was more than adequate to deal with the traffic that the model showed.
Yeah, we can model all day long, but when we know that ultimately this is one of the few east-west all the way through from Washington through St. George and tying into Washington Field Road, we find out later on that a lot of traffic is going to be problematic. So anyway, I appreciate that clarification. I wasn't aware of that, but I know, 2450 has been a arterial road for a long time, but
They reduced it down to a 66.
Yeah.
On the
Okay.
St. George side.
Thank you.
Thank you. We do have a motion and a second. We'll go roll call vote. Do we all vote? Okay.
We just kept talking about
I
it.
just
afterwards.
lost it.
It started.
That was
with
my
comment,
fault, Mayor. I brought the.
In
I
your
asked
defense,
another
we went
question.
on and on afterwards.
All right, that was denied. Item D, consideration to approve an ordinance for zone change request Z-21-11 to change from PUD planned unit development to RA 1/2 residential agricultural half acre minimum located at approximately 1050 South 800 East applicant Telegraph UP&L Kent Heidemann.
Thank you, Mayor. This 2-week holdover is now complete as well. The item is ready for council action. Just to remind you again, the Planning Commission unanimously recommended approval of Z-21-11 for the zone change from PUD, planned unit development, to the proposed residential agricultural half acre RA half zoning designation onto you, the city council.
If there is no discussion, I will make a motion that we approve the ordinance Z-21-11 to change from PUD planned unit development RA 1/2 residential agricultural half acre minimum to RA 1/2 residential agricultural at approximately 1050 South 800 East.
I'll second the motion to change this from PUD to RA 1/2.
Thank you. Motion in a second. Roll call.
Bundy, aye.
Coates, aye.
Ivy, aye.
Word aye.
Staley, aye.
Thank you, gentlemen. That's approved. Item 9, resolution. Consideration to approve a resolution proclaiming September 13th through the 20th, 2021 as Ironman Volunteer Week in Washington City, Utah. You've all read the resolution, correct? Okay.
We have, Mayor, I'd just make one comment that it's Ironman Volunteer Week. And I would just like to encourage those that would have the time and ability to get involved in that. It's a great event. From what I understand, it's one of the biggest sporting events ever to come to Southern Utah. And the economic impact, among other things, is going to be significant to our area. So just for the residents to know, a great vantage point that we're kind of talking about is Main Street, where the bicyclists will come down Main Street and turn at Telegraph and go back up. And that will be both on the 17th for the women's and 18th for the men. So please, if you can volunteer, reach out. One of our great residents, Colby Nelson, is one of the coordinators for our volunteers. And I just hope that everyone can get involved and it will be a positive experience for everyone. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Just a personal note that Kobe Nielsen is related. So there might be a conflict of interest.
Just go volunteer, Mayor, and I'll be good.
I'm pretty sure he's related to Bundy
We
somewhere.
always talk
too.
about conflicts of interest, don't we?
There's no such thing.
To ad
as-
nauseum.
There's no such thing as a volunteer conflict. of
That's
interest.
exactly right. He can always use your help.
Yeah, he's put me to work before.
Yeah.
If there is nothing further, then I would move that we approve resolution 2021-19 proclaiming September 13th to the 20th, 2021 as Ironman Volunteer Week in Washington, the city of Washington.
Second,
I do have a motion and a second. We will go roll call vote.
Staley, aye.
Ward, aye.
IVI.
Coates, aye.
Bundy, aye.
Thank you. That's passed. Anything to report from your assigned committees?
Mayor, oh, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just,
Go ahead,
mine was
Mike.
just a question, Councilman. And maybe our manager will address these, but I'm just wondering about the beginning of Washington Dam Road, the water line. I know, and maybe this is Mike Shaw question, but I know that's been talked about and I don't see any action there. Just wondering about that. And then also, we had a discussion, I don't know, a month, 6 weeks ago about the secondary water plan. And haven't heard anything more about that. I think that's kind of being worked through with development north of the Washington Parkway, but Jeremy, if you want to address those later when you get your report, that's fine. I just wanted to make sure that we get kind of an update on those.
So Mayor, with that, I'll proceed. I just have a quick update from the Land Use Task Force. After receiving comments back from municipalities around the state, some inclusionary zoning language is being addressed, and when that comes out, we'll get that out. Of course, inclusionary zoning was language that was in SB 164 this last legislative session, which was Utah Housing Affordability Amendments. They felt like there was a lot of work that still needed to be done on that, and so that language was taken out with the idea and concept that it would be put back into bills in our next legislative session. The legislators have asked that the Land Use Task Force, as well as the Legislative Policy Committee, be a part of that to identify what the municipalities and cities and towns would like to see in that, what's important to their community, so it covers everyone's needs. But Mayor, I'll keep everyone, you and the council apprised of that as it comes forward. But as of right now, that's where that is at. And again, that is inclusionary zoning is the topic of that.
Thank you.
So Mayor, I have one quick thing on the solid waste board. We had our meeting on Monday. One of the items that the solid waste board has decided to do is they had some after hours dumping at the landfill that were just some dumpsters. And they're having a lot of problems with contractors dumping in them after hours. And they're having problems with the fact that it's expensive to keep it open as well.
Sure.
And so we did some calling, and no other landfill in the state does after hours dumping. So we're going to be eliminating that to the service to the public, which I didn't like the fact that we were taking it away. I mean, I don't think most people knew, it wasn't advertised that it was there, but more contractors, they felt like more contractors were taking advantage. And I felt like more contractors were just missing the time to hit the dump, and then they saw that it was open. So
I think they do it later because they're working 24/7 like
yes,
everyone else.
like
and
everyone
that's-
else. But I
that's
just
why
wanted to make the public know that they
And-
are closing those after hours.
When will that closure happen?
It in the next month or so. The other thing that I did notice or did bring up is, hey, the landfill is basically in Washington. And so what they seem to happen is that if they can't dump, where do they dump? They drive down the road and dump, which is Washington
That was
City.
my concern there. Yeah.
And so we brought that up. And if I'm bringing that up to the council, if we start seeing a problem, we'll make sure you let me know, and we'll start addressing it and dealing with it that way. And it's on a temporary basis. So if it becomes more of a problem, we'll open it back up. But they were just fighting with dealing with monitoring who should dump there, because it is for the residents. The residents can dump there for free. It's part of their fees that they pay. So it's just nice, but they feel like it was being taken advantage of. And so they want to change it up a little. So I just want to let everyone know on the council
Good.
about that.
Thank you.
Could I ask another question, kind of out in that neck of the woods, going over to Country Lane, I guess it is. We cross the bridge and then we have stop sign. We go all the way, we have a stop sign. I'm just wondering the thinking on having a stop sign for side streets that don't have any traffic coming on those. Can anybody answer that?
I can answer it. I wasn't on the council at the time, but it was approved by council to have stop signs there to mitigate traffic.
Calm traffic, as the traffic engineers would say, I guess. Slow it
And
down.
you can do a lot of things to calm traffic. I don't know. I wasn't involved in all the discussion, but I know that's
Which
the history.
location is this again?
Country
On
Way.
Country Way, across the bridge,
It's the
going
main
north
road,
towards the
but there's
landfill.
stop sign after stop sign. And I think it's to stop the big trucks.
It was an hour-long discussion in the zoning of that. And that's what came through the council a couple of years ago, was to have, because the people were just flying down that road, I guess. So all the neighbors let us know. And so that's why the stop signs came about, even though they're not even being used yet.
Did put
But
speed bumps in. I've had people suggest that lately, but
Yeah.
no, we can't. No.
Lots of waterways.
the intersections are actually supposed to be raised a little bit on those, because they were supposed to be. You'll have to.
What do they call
On
it?
those intersections, Drew, I ride my bike out there. I've never had a car pull out from them.
Yeah, that's my
it's
point.
very
I mean,
safe.
Yeah.
I mean, isn't that road, I mean, ultimately, I know we're not improving that road onto the landfill for the same reason, I assume. It's pretty rough to
That road,
drive.
there's an industrial park by the
Mhm,
same
yep.
develop, that's going to be even farther out, and that road will be all the way out to that industrial park, which is just shy of the landfill.
Yeah.
So you'll be surprised how much, Mr. Shaw is going to jump on. Thank
The intent
the
is to leave
guru of
those stop signs.
streets. Mike.
A little bit of insight on it. So the previous council had the stop signs installed to control the speed. Again, if you know me very well, I was very much opposed to that. Studies show it doesn't control speed. It actually increases speed because it's called jackrabbit starts. They come to
Everybody stops and then they're anxious to get started and they go faster.
started and they go faster. And
Exactly.
so there is also the council.
I would
approved
never,
speed bump.
I would never do that, but people, that's a tendency.
But the council also approved a speed bump to go in the Countryway subdivision to slow the traffic down through the existing housing there. I've been apprehensive to put that in because the noise that it would make from the big trucks going over those speed bumps. But that's also was a council decision. So that's a little bit of the history on it.
Thank you, Mike.
And if you'd like me to remove the stop signs, I'd be more than happy.
Long-term won't Landfill Road veer to the east where the new bridge will be near Long Valley? So that might relieve some of the heavy traffic off Country Way.
Correct.
Yeah. All right, thank you. Anybody else report? If not, we'll move on to the city manager report.
Thank you. It is 7:23 and it's the first time I turned on my microphone. I don't think those two things are correlate together, but we'll see. I will have to answer your questions a little bit later. One of them will be answered in our closed session when we talk about Washington Dam Road. The one thing I would like to bring up, and it ties a little bit to Councilman Coates, the city is in conjunction with the Ironman and St. George City and others doing a day of service community cleanup on September 11th. So we will be placing some dumpsters throughout the community, and different churches are participating. If HOAs or other groups want to participate, we're looking for places to put those dumpsters right now. And I would say that the solid waste district has been very helpful in helping us clean up our community, get things looking as sharp as they can for fall and for the Ironman. So if anybody's interested in that, they can contact Shelley Griffin here at the city office. She's coordinating that for Washington City.
And that's on Patriots Day?
September 11th,
Yeah.
Patriots Day. Is that? Yes. That's all I have.
Thank you. We do have a reason to go to a closed session for a couple of items: to purchase, exchange, or lease a property, and to discuss character or professional competence of an individual. So I'll entertain a motion to adjourn and move into the
So
closed
made
session.
by Councilman Bundy.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Take a 5-minute break.